Such was the case with myself. There was a time in my life where I thought I'd never go back to a lackluster place in my life. Have you ever thought that? Once you have an encounter with Jesus that is just, I don't know how to say it, life-altering. Once you have an encounter with Jesus that's absolutely life-altering, you think, I'll never go back to a place of being lackluster. Such was my case. There was a time where at school, I was really, specifically in college, I was really aimed at following Jesus to the point of, it was not odd for me, 2.5 hours just with the Lord, just Him and I. I was going to school full time, but you find time. You find time for the important things. Everybody does. That's Cleveland Browns right there. If you're Cleveland Browns fans, you'll find time for it. I don't care what you're, you'll even put on, you'll record it, you'll see it some other time if somehow a person works then or whatever it is. You always find time for doing whatever we want to do. We'll find the time. I found that time. I had the privilege of seeing 12 to 18 of my friends come to Jesus, and we all went to the river and baptized. All these guys, man. We just came. It was great to see these guys come to Jesus. Or how, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just 19 years old and I'm praying. Different people are praying. It happens to be, we went to there's this church downtown Bluffton. Different college kids sometimes go in there and pray. We were just praying. And it was just kind of a weird thing that happened. The lights were on timers. And I'm not sure when the lights turned off. I wasn't even sure they turned off. I didn't know that. But they had lights in the sanctuary, and all of a sudden they turned off. And, when the lights are on, they turn off, and it's 10, 11 o'clock at night. It was pitch, it was black in there. I couldn't see a thing. I wasn't even sure how to get out of there at that point. Until, you find, some other, the exit lights start to glow, you see something. But it was during that moment, I had this impression. I prayed for this person. I was supposed to pray. You ever have these strong impressions? I was supposed to pray for healing tears. I didn't get it. But I prayed for healing tears, and this person starts to sob. Just sob. I could hear them crying. And all of a sudden they said they could see. And I said, what do you mean you can see? I'm night blind. God healed me. I can see now. Those are the kinds of experiences. Or this Bible major that I ran into, which I don't understand how they'd be a Bible major because they didn't even believe in heaven and hell. But they're a Bible major at this college. And there was a cafeteria type of thing where you didn't go through the regular line. You could order what you wanted to. I ordered what I wanted to, and I happened to sit beside this person and their friend, and you kind of introduce yourself. You don't know people, and he said, "Oh, a Bible major." I started talking about what I thought a Bible major would probably like was Jesus, and, really wanting to go on with God. And it became very clear to me they didn't understand what heaven and hell was. And I said, if you don't understand what heaven and hell is, I'm a simple guy, but I knew they weren't saved. If you don't know there's a heaven and hell, there's what's to be saved from. I don't know. I knew they didn't know Jesus. And then they started to talk to one, and they could sense that I was at another place than there, and there was just a little tension in the air. You ever have those kind of conversations? There's just a little tension in the air. And all of a sudden, they're speaking in Spanish to one another. Because Because they know Spanish and I don't know Spanish. And I took French in high school, but that doesn't mean I really know French, but that's a whole other deal. So here they are speaking Spanish to one another, right? And I say, Lord, give me their interpretation. Because they need to know that you're real. And I got impressions about what they were saying, and I butted into their conversation. They said, well, so you know Spanish too? I said, not really. Well, how do you know what we're talking about? I said, well, I just prayed about it. I just kind of broke into the conversation. They said, you don't know what. That was just a fluke. So they began to talk in Spanish and some more, and then I said, okay, Lord, give me another interpretation, and I did it again, and their eyes just kind of went to me, and it was big. Well, I saw this person a couple other times as we would come into that cafeteria place. And I challenged them. I said, why don't you go down to the Christian bookstore right in town and get the book, Satan is Alive and Well on the Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey. Just purchase the book. This person couldn't get it out of her head. To tell you the truth, I hadn't even read the book. But I knew it was a good author, and I knew it was a good book. I've read it since, and it is a really good book. Anyway, the person couldn't get it out of their head. So as they told me the story later, this person did it on a weekend, and they told me this on a Monday. As they told me the story, they said, I went into that bookstore, and there was this heaviness was in that whole bookstore. And I looked around and I tried to find the book, and this was kind of the way it was. There were books here and there were books there, and then there was an exit, right? There was an exit, and the person says, I'm out of here, there's this heaviness in here, I feel weird, I'm getting out of here. And the person was ready to go out the door, and there were books here, and this book from the top shelf fell right down right in front of her, and it was that very book. And she looked at the door, and she looked at the book, and the counter was right here to pay as you get out. So she scooped up the book, put the book down, and said, I want to get this book, and she got out of there. And then she told me that early on in the book, she started reading the book. Early on in the book it says, let God decide for you whether Satan is alive and well. If there really is evil in this world. And she said that moved her. So she opened her heart up and said, God, I want to know if there really is a Satan. And she was telling me this on a Monday, and she said she read the whole book. And I said, so did you ask Jesus to come into your heart? Because I knew how Lindsay had that in the book. And she said no, and I said, would you like to invite him in? She said, absolutely. This was the kind of experience that I had, and this was life to me. Walking with Christ. Daring to believe that He would give me an interpretation. Just following an impulse and pray for healing tears. What's that? I don't know. I'm just going to do it. This was my experience. Here we are, a bunch of college kids. We're in a circle. It's around 1977. It's in college. We're just praying in someone's apartment. I sense that God wants me to come over and put my hand just like that. Kind of had an afro. It was not black, but had an afro. I just touched his hair like that. And as I touched his hair like that, this person fell, keeled right on over. These college students with their eyes open were looking at me and looking at the door. Because they are saying, what is going on? I said, the person's encountering Jesus in a brand new way. When things like that happen, we have a tendency to believe that God is here and in the now. The person was out for a good 20 minutes or so and said, Jesus came to me and talked about what Jesus said to him. That was going on there. There are times and there are seasons. Remember. Remember is a theme in Scripture. To remember. Because we have a tendency to forget. When we think about memory, the mental capacity or faculty of retaining and reviving facts, events, impressions, recalling what happened in previous times. Now here's a passage. Remember. This is said to the people of Israel before they crossed, before they were looking to cross into the promised land. It says, only be careful. And we're going to go over there's a lot of admonition, a lot of instruction in this particular passage. Be careful. Watch yourselves closely so that you do not forget the things your eyes have seen, or let them fade from your heart as long as you live. Teach them to your children, to their children after them. And then he says, remember the day. And God starts recalling back to them, remember how you were in bondage in Egypt. And how I sent plague after plague after plague. And how I opened the Red Sea. The part of this passage that sticks out to me was the nugget that really leaped out, is that be careful to not let them fade from your heart. The experiences that we've had with God, real experiences, encounters, we can lose them. I never thought that walking with God so closely at one point in my life that I would conceive of turning away. There were about 6 years of darkness. I call it darkness. Because it was. I went my way. God was silent to me. And it took someone to remind me. This is very much alive in the New Testament. It says here in Galatians 1, Paul speaking to the church. A short time ago, God chose you to follow Him. He chose you through His grace that came through Christ. But now I'm amazed that you're already turning away and believing something different. What happened? What's going on? You turn your life to Christ and you've shifted. It's amazing. Do you ever feel like the children of Israel? The pattern's rather predictable.